My grandmother's name was Iris Calloway. She smelled like cedar and black tea, and she could silence a room full of arguing people just by setting down her coffee cup. When she died, she left me a storage unit in rural Georgia that nobody wanted. My aunt said it was full of junk. My uncle laughed when I signed the transfer papers. My mother, standing in the corner of the lawyer's office with her arms crossed, said, "Honey, don't embarrass yourself trying to make something out of nothing." That storage unit changed every single thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Celeste Morrow. I'm 31 years old. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, in a family that looked beautiful from the outside. The kind of family that sends Christmas cards with everyone wearing the same shade of blue. Inside, it was a different story. My mother, Diane, was the youngest of 3 Calloway children. Her brother, my Uncle Raymond, was the oldest and loudest. Her sister, my Aunt Patricia, was the most organized and the most calculating. And between the two of them, they had spent most of my grandmother's final years positioning themselves to inherit everything. I was not part of their planning. I was, in their words, Diane's quiet girl. The one who went into social work instead of finance. The one who drove a used Civic instead of leasing something impressive. The one who showed up to Sunday dinners and washed the dishes without being asked, which everyone appreciated and no one noticed. My grandmother noticed. Every week, she called me on Tuesday evenings. Not my mother. Not Raymond. Not Patricia. Me. She asked about my caseload. My clients. The family I'd helped find transitional housing, the teenager I'd been advocating for in family court. She listened the way people only listen when they genuinely care, which is rarer than anyone admits. Once, about 8 months before she died, she said something I stored away without fully understanding. We were on the phone and she'd gone quiet in that particular way she had. Like she was choosing her next words the way you choose which brick to remove from a wall. "Celeste," she said. "Some things are worth more than they appear. And some people will only see the appearance." I told her that sounded like a proverb. She laughed. "No, baby, that's a plan." She passed on a Wednesday morning in February. Pneumonia that moved faster than anyone expected. I got the call at 5:47 a.m. and drove straight to the hospital, still in the clothes I'd slept in. When I arrived, Raymond and Patricia were already in the hallway outside her room, speaking in hushed voices with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, wore a charcoal suit, and carried a leather briefcase with gold clasps. His name, I would later learn, was Gerald Fitch, a lawyer from Macon, who specialized in estate planning. Specialized, as it turned out, in estate planning for people who could pay him to make documents say what they needed them to say. I slipped past them without speaking. I sat beside my grandmother. I held her hand. I stayed until a nurse gently suggested I let them finish their paperwork. It was only later, driving home, that I remembered the briefcase, and thought, what paperwork? The reading of the will took place 3 weeks later at Gerald Fitch's office in Macon. Beige carpet, framed diplomas, a bowl of wrapped mints on the reception desk. Raymond received the primary residence in Savannah, a 4-bedroom colonial with a renovated kitchen worth $580,000. Patricia received the investment accounts, totaling approximately $340,000, and a parcel of land outside of Brunswick. My mother received the jewelry collection and $25,000 in cash, and I received a storage unit, Unit 14C, at Callaway Self-Storage in Baxley, Georgia, a facility my grandmother had owned, and eventually stopped operating. The unit itself had been locked for over 11 years. Gerald Fitch slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a single key on a plain ring. Raymond actually smiled. Patricia was more disciplined. She folded her hands and said, "That's thoughtful. Iris always liked to give everyone something." My mother said nothing. She reached across and squeezed my hand, and I couldn't tell if she was apologizing or performing. I took the key. I said thank you to no one in particular. I walked to my car and I sat in the parking garage for 22 minutes before I could make myself move. Then I remembered my grandmother's voice. Some things are worth more than they appear. I drove to Baxley. The facility was off a 2-lane road between a feed supply store and a Baptist church. The main building had been padlocked for years, but the individual units along the exterior row were still accessible from outside. Unit 14C was at the far end, half hidden behind an overgrown magnolia. The metal door had rusted at the bottom corners. The lock itself was clean. I used the key. Inside, the unit was about the size of a 1-car garage. Most of it was exactly what my family expected. Old furniture stacked under moving blankets, cardboard boxes sealed with brittle tape, a dress form, a broken floor lamp, 2 rolled rugs. But against the back wall, draped beneath a canvas tarpaulin, was a large oak dresser. Wide, old, solid. The kind of furniture built before people started building things to fall apart. Taped to the top of the tarpaulin was an envelope. My name was written on it in my grandmother's handwriting. I recognized the particular way she made a capital C, the small upward tail she always added. Inside the envelope was a single index card. Celeste, bottom drawer, push all the way back. Love always, Graham. The bottom drawer was heavy. I had to use both hands. I cleared out the folded linens inside, pushed them aside, and felt along the back of the drawer panel. There was a seam, not a crack. A seam. Deliberate, fitted, the kind a carpenter makes when they're building something to be found only by someone who is looking. I pressed. The false back panel released. Behind it was a manila envelope. Thick, sealed with several layers of tape, and beneath the envelope, wrapped carefully in a piece of blue velvet, a small brass key, older than the storage unit key, more intricate. I sat down on the floor of that storage unit and opened the manila envelope. Inside was a deed, a property deed for 4.3 acres of land in Glynn County, Georgia, registered in the name of Iris June Calloway. Dated 31 years earlier. The property was located in an area outside Brunswick that had, in the intervening decades, become one of the fastest developing coastal corridors in the state. Attached to the deed was a current property assessment. Estimated value, $1.2 million. Beneath that, a second document. A letter, 4 pages, handwritten, "My dearest Celeste, if you found this, then I wasn't wrong about you. And I wasn't wrong about them." She described what had been happening for the 2 years before she died. How Raymond had begun managing her finances after she had a minor stroke at 78. How small withdrawals became larger ones. How she asked for statements and received summaries that didn't match. How Patricia had helped facilitate a power of attorney amendment she had not fully understood at the time of signing. "I hired my own attorney," she wrote. "A woman named Beverly Cross in Valdosta. She helped me move the Glynn County land into a separate holding document, outside the trust they were already planning to absorb. Gerald Fitch does not know it exists. Raymond does not know it exists. The will he helped draft mentions only what I allowed them to see. She had hidden the real asset in plain sight. A storage unit full of old furniture, willed to the granddaughter no one thought to envy. The brass key," she wrote, "opens a lockbox at First Heritage Bank in Brunswick. Beverly Cross has a letter authorizing you to access it. Her number is below. She is expecting your call." The final paragraph was short. "I couldn't fight them while I was here. They had too many advantages. But I could make sure the truth waited for you. You were always the one who stayed. I wanted to make sure staying was worth it." Beverly Cross was in her mid-50s, sharp and unhurried. She met me at her office the following morning and handed me a sealed letter on official letterhead before I'd even sat down. "Your grandmother was one of the most methodical clients I've ever worked with," she said. "She planned this over 14 months. The lockbox at First Heritage Bank contained the original deed, certified and notarized. A second document detailing 27 months of unauthorized withdrawals from Iris Calloway's primary account, traced to transfers authorized under the amended power of attorney. The total was $187,000. It also contained a recorded conversation, a small digital recorder my grandmother had kept in her cardigan pocket during a meeting with Raymond and Gerald Fitch, 11 months before she died, in which Raymond discussed which assets to consolidate before the estate was formalized. His voice on the recording was calm and familiar and devastating. Beverly had already contacted an estate litigation attorney in Savannah, named Marcus Okafor. He specialized in probate fraud and elder financial abuse. She handed me his card. "He's been briefed," she said. "He's ready when you are." The legal process took 8 months. Raymond hired 2 attorneys. Patricia retained a third. Gerald Fitch suddenly became very difficult to reach. My mother, to her quiet credit, did not fight the proceedings. She sat across from me at Marcus Okafor's conference table during the mediation session and said, almost to herself, "I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to know." That sentence held more honesty than anything she'd said to me in years. The recording was admissible under Georgia's single-party consent law. The forged power of attorney amendment was confirmed by 2 independent handwriting experts. The unauthorized transfers were fully documented. Raymond accepted a plea agreement. 18 months of supervised probation, full restitution of $187,000, and removal as executor of the estate. Gerald Fitch surrendered his law license pending a state bar investigation. Patricia settled civilly, returning her share of the investment accounts and entering a formal consent agreement. The Glynn County property was transferred to me, clear and uncontested. I didn't sell it right away. For several months, I drove out there on Sunday mornings and sat in my car looking at the land. 4 acres of coastal Georgia, scrub oak and open sky. The kind of land that holds light differently than anywhere else. My grandmother had held it for 31 years without telling anyone. Had watched its value grow quietly, patiently, the way she did everything. Eventually I made a decision. I sold 2 acres to a developer at market value. With the proceeds, I paid off the graduate school loans, established a legal defense fund for elder financial abuse victims through a local nonprofit, and renovated a small office space in Savannah that now operates as a pro bono consultation center. We offer free legal guidance to seniors experiencing financial coercion within their own families. I kept the other 2 acres. I'm building a house there. Small, simple, facing east. My grandmother never told me I was her favorite. She didn't operate that way. What she did instead was show up, consistently and quietly, in every way that mattered. She called on Tuesdays. She remembered the names of my clients. She baked lemon pound cake and left it on my doorstep once, when I had a hard week, with a note that said only, "For Celeste. Keep going." She couldn't stop what was happening to her, but she made sure it wouldn't be the final word. I wear her watch now. A simple gold Timex, the kind that costs $20. She wore it every day for 40 years. People ask about it sometimes and I tell them it belonged to my grandmother. They usually say, "It's lovely." They don't know it's worth more than anything in the room. That's the point. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. The people who underestimate you are counting on that being permanent. They assume that because you've been quiet, you have nothing to say. That because you've been patient, you have nothing to protect. That because you accepted less, you deserve less. My grandmother knew differently, and she trusted me to know it too. Sometimes the people who love us most can't protect us while they're here, so they do the next best thing. They make sure the truth is still standing when we're finally ready to find it. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever been the one in the family that no one took seriously, I hope you remember. That was never the truth about you. It was only the truth about them.